Welcome back to Castle Combe for this Motors TV live race day. David Addison and Charlie Butler-Henderson trackside, looking forward in a moment to the first of two Castle Combe Adabar Sports and GT Championship races, which brings together this very eclectic mix of cars, sports prototypes. You've got one or two what you might call touring cars or GT cars, even rally cars in a sense. There's a Mitsubishi Evo on the grid. A little bit earlier on in the day, however, we were enjoying a very good mini challenge race that sadly had to be red flagged after a sizable accident on this part of the circuit. Dean Raymond's very slow car was limping across the line. Arthur Forster came hurtling out of Camp Corner involved in a battle and had effectively nowhere to go. It was a very big whack right into the back of Dean Raymond's car, and although the race had to be stopped and the drivers taken to the medical centre, I'm happy to say that both of them are okay and have now been released from the medical centre. We know that minis are meant to be small, not that small, Charlie. That was a big hit.
Yeah, that was a very big hit, and our commentary box is pretty much just opposite that, and the noise was a very nasty noise, really, so it took us all a bit by surprise, really. So marshals are doing a fantastic job. They put the red flags out straight away. They knew that was a big incident because they are very experienced. I saw them all getting briefed this morning while they were having their bacon rolls and cups of teas. They are absolutely brilliant with what they do. They're all volunteers, and the clerk of the course there had them all gripped in telling them how they wanted the cars taking from each accident to back into the pit lane. So a really good, well-organised team here on this Bank Holiday Monday here at Castle Combe. So well done in advance to all of these guys that are braving the weather and are very, very close to the action trackside.
Now, Gary Preble, the man on pole position for this Sports and GT Championship race, a winner last time out, and that came despite a leaking turbo pipe. He's going to be the man to beat, I think, in this. But Craig Fleming lining up with him at the front. There you can see a very different kind of front row. Mitsubishi Lancer Evo versus the Juno alongside the TR250 of Craig Fleming, ex-Formula Renault racer. Very briefly drove in the British Formula 3 Championship in the Class B contest, and has very recently been a man to beat in supercarts as well. But Craig Fleming certainly one to watch. On the second row of the grid, 23 Simon Tilling with his 1175 turbo engined Radical, the orange, white and black car you can see there, and then Josh Smith lining up with him, driving the Hayabusa engined Radical PR6, the central seat Radical, and that's why it goes into the invitation class rather than into the conventional classes, which are for over 2 litre cars, up to 2 litre cars, and then you've got the highly modified saloon and sports car brigade as well, which includes the 550 to 600 brake horsepower BMW that you can see there in the background, driven by Doug Watson. V10 engine car that's got our camera on board, and that on a greasy circuit is going to be a real handful.
Yeah, there's only 2 of those cars actually in the world. There's one in America and there's one in Europe, and that is one of those cars. So again, we see the greasy surface flag. So looking forward to hopefully seeing some good footage from our onboard camera car throughout the race. The guy in the Mitsubishi, Mr. Preble, on the front row there, isn't going to be liking this dry conditions because that 4-wheel drive Mitsubishi was on a massive advantage to him. So he's not going to be liking this dry line that's appearing that you can see there on the left-hand side of the circuit.
I'm looking for the next black cloud to see whether that's going to save him in this race. Well, all will be revealed. So you've got the Mitsubishi and the Juno at the front of the grid, and a Mark II Escort look heading for the back of the grid now.
Doesn't know who to trust in these sort of fields. You expect the unexpected.
It's Cy Harris with the Escort at the very back, the Mark II, lining up alongside Michael Timberlake's BMW, somebody who celebrates his birthday tomorrow, the big 5-0, and the grid is formed. We're just about ready to go then. So the 5-second board is shown to the drivers. Look from the gantry. Lights will go red, you know the score. All 5 will come on. When the lights go out, we're going to be in business. 4-wheel drive should be a good advantage off the line. Yes, it is. Gary Preble gets away like a robber's dog. He leaves everybody else for dead. The BMW of Doug Watson slithers off the grid. Everybody's away safely, but the BMW proving to be a real handful there. But Gary Preble is away and gone. Can he build up an advantage on this first lap of the race? As you can see, the Perry Wadhams driven TVR Tuscan go through. Cy Harris at the back with a Mark II Escort. So Preble it is leading. Second is Craig Fleming. Third is Simon Tilling as they work their way through Quarry for the first time. In a sense, it's a bit like a handicap race now, because straight away you've got somebody with an advantage and everybody else trying to play catch-up, as there, Stuart Dixon's Lotus Exige turns its way up towards the S's.
Yeah, that was a stonking start from Preble there. He just needs to get away from that pack as much as he can. And an instant there on the first lap already. So a few prisoners there of Castle Combe on that greasy surface on the first lap.
Yeah, one was Des Andrews in the Mega Heart, 33 you saw at 90 degrees to the road. Now here's the sports prototype back at the second place, Fleming ahead of Tilling, and then behind them you've got number 3 Josh Smith, look there, going through in the Radical PR6, and while they're squabbling, Gary Preble's just driving off into the distance.
Yeah, I was literally just about to say that, so he's really taking advantage of the four-wheel drive start that he's just had on that greasy surface before there's a dry line that appears even more. But these guys really are squabbling, as kind of a 10 there, just having an incident in one of the chicanes, but looks like trouble-free, get back going again, and a great sounding car that as well, that number 10 car.
It is Cy Hayes then from the back of the grid who has got back into the race now. There is Craig Fleming under pressure, Simon Tilling goes through, squeezes by, up on the inside. That gives him second place. Remember, that's a turbocharged car of Simon Tilling, 1175 turbocharged CC, 350 horsepower this Radical SR3 has got. And now, as the road dries and the tyres get warmer, Simon Tilling is going to be a real threat to Gary Preble for the lead. It was 2.7 seconds between them. That's now the gap to monitor. It was first to third, now it's first to second, and it's coming down.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this battle unfold. This Mitsubishi is definitely going to be under threat, I reckon, in another couple of laps. So another couple of laps, these guys are going to start to pounce as these tyres get up to temperature, and the rear-wheel drive cars of the prototype cars that we can see there are starting to get their confidence on this drying Castle Combe circuit.
Josh Smith now past Craig Fleming as well for third. And look at the lead gap. It is coming down hand over fist now as the road gets drier. So Simon Tilling in second place is getting faster and faster and faster. This time around he's going to be right up, I think, with Gary Preble come the end of the lap. So down they come towards Camp Corner. Craig Fleming in fourth is really fading. That might be something to do with the wrong tyre choice as much as anything. But as the leaders go by, what was 2.7 seconds is 0.2 of a second. That's all.
Yeah, Preble, a very, very experienced driver, started in 93, and as you can see, a great move up the inside there to take the lead, and it'll be interesting to see the Mitsubishi, to see what lines he then takes now to try and keep those tyres as cool as possible on that four-wheel drive machine. 680 brake horsepower that Mitsubishi is producing. Well, what a beast. No wonder he got a great start.
Now, can he hang on to second place? I fear the answer there is going to be no, because he's being chased now by Josh Smith in the Radical. Now, as far as Preble is concerned, where is his next class rival? It is Angus Gorringe with the Z3M Coupe, a long, long way back, 10th at the moment. So in terms of class points, Gary Preble's okay. What he doesn't really want to do is lose too many places overall. That's going to be a frustration to his pride as much as anything. There is Josh Smith pressing on and trying to bring down this gap. Now, Simon Tilling, having hit the front, is doing what Preble did early on. In other words, driving away and building up a gap.
Yeah, with the Mitsubishi there, it's a much bigger car, it's much higher, so it's going to generate more heat into those tyres, and then hence it's going to go off very, very quickly. So lots of body roll on the Mitsubishi, which is then causing him a slight disadvantage. But if it was absolutely chucking down with rain, or the circuit was still wet, he would be still absolutely way out in front. So I'm glad that these conditions are bringing us really close racing and a real mix of cars as well.
Yes, he's an experienced driver, of course, Gary Preble, as he goes now towards the right-hander of Quarry, but Josh Smith is bringing down this gap, so the cheeky little Radical closing up onto the Mitsubishi. They're almost together now. Look, as they come out of the corner, they're not quite nose to tail, but they will be by the time they get up towards the S's, because there the Radical is hidden. So close is it under the rear wing. Gary Preble is now delayed by the Cy Hayes Ford Escort that gets in the way just a little bit. Now it darts to one side, hops out of the way. You can't really miss a big orange Mitsubishi, can you? But the Radical, they're tucked up behind.
And can I just also say, with Josh Smith in car number 3, who's bearing down to potentially take second place from the Mitsubishi of Preble, is actually a college, it's a student-run car, and he is actually an ex-student himself that's the driver, but is now a teacher. So really good bit of story there, that these guys are all students that set up this car. So fantastic if he can take the move.
The Bridgewater College Motorsport round Radical then is there in third. It's not quite gone surging past the Mitsubishi in the way that Simon Tilling did. Simon Tilling now leading by nearly 6 seconds. Gary Preble here making sure that the Mitsubishi hangs on to that pace for as long as possible. Now the turbo kicks in and he's able to pull away a little bit, isn't he, going uphill? And maybe they're just looking for the damper part of the road, was Josh Smith in third place. But this is one of the beauties of a race like this. You've got cars that have their own strengths and weaknesses at different parts of the circuit, and Preble runs out wide going through Quarry from nowhere. The Radical catches, nips up the inside and goes through, but Preble's turbo kicks in, but he can't fend him off going up towards the S's there. But he seems to lose a lot of time going through that corner. I just wonder whether Preble may have a problem now.
Oh, I don't think so. I just think that the little cheeky radical, as you said, and the studently run is just so much more nimble through the corners, and that Mitsubishi is like a sort of a bit of a whale in comparison to these. But he's 680 brake horsepower.
Look at the gap. He's been caught and left in that short space of time. So, getting a bit concerned about Gary Preble's car still. Fourth is Craig Fleming. He's also faded, of course. In fifth place, you've got Martin Baker. And remember, in the earlier race, we saw Guy Parr go bouncing off into the tyres. Well, he's got from his graunched Fiesta into his Nemesis. And there he is, Guy Parr, currently in 8th place.
And still running the car number 13.
His traditional number.
No problems for him in this race. But we saw him earlier, like you said, in the yellow Fiesta going slightly wide. But what a fantastic looking car. And the amount of grip that these cars have got through the Bobby chicane there as they come back towards the pits complex is pretty awesome, really. They do look good. Here's our camera car, this M6 BMW, only 2 of them. And it's actually its first outing today. It's its first outing today.
And behind is Des Andrews in the Mega Heart. It's a mighty bit of kit, isn't it, that BMW? And again, it's great to see cars like this in a championship like this that has so much variety. Makes a glorious noise as well, particularly when it's on full song in the dry. Down towards the tower comes the car of Doug Watson, the Bristolian, who raced the Z3M Coupe that you saw earlier on in the hands of Angus Gorringe last year. Now here he comes in traffic through Bobbies.
Looks like a German GTM touring car that's just appeared at Castle Combe and sort of mixed it in with a radical race, doesn't it? It really is standing out like a sore thumb, but what a fantastic sounding and looking car.
It dwarfs everything around it, doesn't it? Bearing down there on the MR2 GT of George Michael. Coming out of Camp Corner now, the Mega Heart behind, quirky shape that it is. Built by John Hart, the father of Doug and Greg Hart, Clubman's races of years past. And now that the road dries, I reckon that BMW is starting to get a little bit stronger, isn't it? Heading up now to Quarry. The race leader has gone by. Last time through, Josh Smith lapped quicker than Simon Tilling, who, look at that, he's being held up in traffic. He caught the BMW and had to really stand on the anchors there, switches sides, goes around the outside of the huge BMW, and look at all of this traffic ahead of him. So we've got the cars working their way now through the S's, including there, look, number 89, Mark Matthews, one of the Marlin EXI Sports. The sister car behind in the hands of Dylan Popovich, and Simon Tilling is trying to get through all of these slower cars before he gets caught by Josh Smith, who is getting closer and closer all the time. Look, now Smith has got to get himself through all of this traffic, and it's not easy. Des Andrews is ahead of him. We're looking at the White Radical in 2nd place. He's trying to lap people, and the spin right ahead of him, and he was very, very lucky to get away with that, as indeed they all were. That, for a moment, I thought was going to be very, very nasty. Josh Smith, he'll have eyes out like chapel hat pegs now, trying to avoid that, but he got away with that very much unscathed. Yeah, we talk about back markers being quite a key part of club sort of racing that we're watching now, but that was just a bit of a scary move. Lots of cars jostling for position, and remember they're fighting amongst themselves as well. So you can see the Hell Performance sponsored cars are the Merlin cars. So let's have a look. So we've got car number 33, just gets a little bit wide, or just gets the back wheel, just slightly locks up on the rear and snaps, doesn't manage to spin in front of anybody, and absolutely fine. A little bit of a wave from one of those Merlin prepared Hell Performance cars, as saying, what did you do that for? You know, a bit of road rage out on the race circuit. But everybody escaped unscathed, thank God. And even though Josh Smith was delayed slightly, he was still 9/10 of a second quicker and has brought the gap down. Gary Preble, in the meantime, is losing more places. Craig Fleming now is 4th ahead of him, past both of them. There, look, number 19. That is the Radical in the hands of Martin Baker, so he has worked his way up from the 3rd row. Craig Fleming is 4th, and Gary Preble, I'm still a bit concerned about that car, you know. It is now 5th, having been leading the early lap. I know some of that was down to its 4-wheel drive off the start, but he's losing places and he's not able to respond. Who is the next man that might be able to get up with him? Norman Lackford is chasing after him with his Radical. Now Norman Lackford, another Castle Combe stalwart, is 12 seconds back, and we've got 5 minutes to go. It's another gap to monitor. That works. Contact. George Michael, I'm afraid, collects Doug Watson. Des Andrews almost gets involved this time in somebody else's accident. The BMW has slowed and stalled and is trying to rejoin, and George Michael's Toyota MR2 GT in the background is trying to fire up and rejoin. Well, it's a great shot we get at that car.
Yeah, those of you that we were just saying, looks like a German touring car, DTM style, that you can see how awesome that car looks. So let's have a look at the replay. MR2 goes slightly sideways, tags the side of the BMW, puts them into a spin, and there's our number 22 car, the middle car that you can see there that spun earlier. But again, BMW in the wars on that one time, but what a great looking car.
And the ubiquitous Ford Escort Mark II, Cy Hayes into the pit lane. There is Doug Watson, crabbing, I think it is fair to say, down the pit lane.
Yeah, that car's not driving in a straight line. It's got a slight bit of right-hand crabbing going on, so some suspension damage, which is a real shame. And some bodywork damage as well as it drives past the commentary box. But as we return back to the racing briefly, then back to the BMW. That's lovely, that, isn't it?
You want one of those, I can tell.
wouldn't mind having a go at one of them.
Yes. Well, say it loud enough. There's another race later on. Have you got your helmet and your licence with you?
No, unfortunately not.
Oh, Charlie.
Unfortunately not.
It's not like you. So Doug Watson, sad to say, is in the pit lane. There's your race leader, Simon Tilling, and the gap has gone up again, 5.3 seconds, because Josh Smith now has lost time and is being caught by number 19 Martin Baker in the red Radical. Craig Fleming is running 4th and Gary Preble is running 5th. Now we wait for 2nd and 3rd towards Quarry, and there you can see in 3rd place is Martin Baker, and he is now reeling in Josh Smith. That car of Martin Baker getting better as the race wears on. The white Radical 2nd is Smith, the red one 3rd is Baker. I'm not convinced either of them can do anything about Simon Tilling's turbocharged Radical up the road, but we might yet before the end, which is 3 minutes or so away, have a swap around for 2nd place.
Yeah, some really good racing here, as you can see, different like open top sports cars and closed wheel cars, but it'd be still interesting to see why that Mitsubishi had such a great start, storming first few laps, and then now sort of in the clutches of these, you know, the Radicals and the prototypes.
Yeah, he's not yet being caught by Norman Lackford by a great amount. The gap is down slightly, but it's still 12 seconds between those cars. So Gary Preble, I think, will hang on to his place. But Martin Baker is not hanging about at all, is he? Look, as he comes now out of camp over the line, and the margin is 1.7 seconds. Well, Josh Smith has responded. He's just done the fastest lap of the race, a full second quicker than Simon Tilling. So on a clear road, you never know, he might just be able to have a go. But he's running out of time. We've only got 2 minutes to go now. So Simon Tilling leading the way, may just be able to hang on in there. What about for 2nd place? 1.7 seconds between Josh Smith and Martin Baker. Simon Tilling, a very experienced competitor in these sorts of cars, and has been a regular race winner over the years against the likes of Andrew Shanley most lately in the Castle Combe Special GT Championship. And he comes for the penultimate time out of Hammerdown. So this is the fight for 2nd place that has got this and one more lap to go. And the way that Martin Baker has driven suggests that he is going to be a real threat before the checkered flag.
Yeah, he really is closing in quite hard on the last lap as he goes wide on the exit of Tower there before it enters Bobby. So he really is pushing hard, and you can just see the body language of just this helmet moving around in the car, that he really is thriving on these conditions and loves the circuit. You can actually see the car dancing underneath him and really is working well. So great conditions here for the number 19 car at the moment as he's getting closer and closer to the 2nd man, Smith. He's in the tow at the moment as he goes through Folly Corner, and these cars are very, very physical, and he takes the move around the outside as he then approaches Avon Rise. So a great move around the outside to take 2nd place. Well done.
He's just done the best lap of the race, carries all that momentum uphill, goes through. Good, brave move that for 2nd place. So Martin Baker up into 2nd. Now he's only 2.7 seconds away from Simon Tilling. Can he, on this last lap, do anything about the race leader? Let's see. He was much quicker last time because Simon Tilling did a 1:12 and Martin Baker did a 1:09, so 3 seconds quicker he's got to make up, and that's under 3 seconds. He might just be on the tail of the leader by the time they get to the last corner. It goes diving up the inside of the slower car there, gets past the Marlin, going through Tower. Simon Tilling now comes up towards Bobby's. Look at the way the gap is coming down and down. Martin Baker, I fear, might need one more lap, but he comes so quickly out of Bobby's. He's got one more corner on which to try. This 2nd round of the Castle Combe Vadabal Sports and GT Championship looks like it will go the way of Simon Tilling, but Martin Baker has driven tremendously well here. He's almost on the tail. The checkered flag flies. Simon Tilling comes across the line with Martin Baker right up behind him at the end. 0.159 of a second is all that covers the top two. One more lap, it would have been a different story, I'm sure. Martin Baker, what a drive, right there on the back of the leader. And basically, I think that was about a car's length back, wasn't it? If that. 3rd goes the way of Josh Smith. Craig Fleming comes home in 4th place. And Gary Preble is going to be able to hang on in there to 5th. And, of course, to win his class. Still got some good battles lower down the order, including, as the field drops now down towards camp, Norman Lackford getting a bit sideways, just ahead of Andrew Tidy. And Guy Parr in the Nemesis is right up with the pair of them. Guy Parr finishes 8th, Andrew Tidy is 7th, and Norman Lackford rounds out the top 6. Battles all the way through the field. Michael Timberlake in the E46 BMW M3 heading there down towards Camp Corner. Number 41 there, you can see that's Jeremy Irwin in the Jetona, which began as the Rawlston Sports 2000 car, of which there were not very many built many years ago. And he goes across the line now to finish in 14th place, and Perry Wadhams, TVR Tuscan, behind him in 15th place. Simon Tilling is the winner by 0.159 of a second. It doesn't really tell the story of the race, does it, that? Because he led the bulk of it by quite some way. And had it been another lap, it could have been a very different story. But Simon cares not. He has won, and that sets him up nicely for race 2 later on in the day.
Yeah, he nearly got caught napping. Baker was on a right mission.
Yeah.
You could just see the body language of that car moving around the circuit. Baker was on a real mission, and literally we just needed another few hundred yards, let alone another lap, and he would have lost the lead. So he either got caught napping or he had it completely under control. But nevertheless, he's got the race win. Fair play to him.
Simon Tilling wins race 1 then for the Sports and GT cars. Martin Baker chases him home, 0.159 of a second between them. Baker doing the best lap of the race on that very last lap, a 1:9.081. Josh Smith third ahead of Craig Fleming. Early leader Gary Preble takes 5th, and Norman Lackford rounds out the top 6.